Prime Video presents The Boys. The series' biggest strength is simply its boldness, says the New York Times. It does not attempt a textbook definition of fascism. It just plunges its fist through your chest and trusts that you'll get the point. The Boys is awards eligible for Guild members at consideramazon.com.
Hi, I'm Simon Rich, and it's really my honor and my privilege to be here on Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Hi there, welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. I'm Jake Hogan. That shouldn't be a surprise. You've tuned into Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. The show has been going like gangbusters. People love this show, and I'm thrilled. If you like this show, subscribe to it. Press like if there's a like button around you, or write a review, or share it with somebody. The more you share it with somebody, the more it gets around, and the more compliments I get randomly from people, from strangers. And if I can find the love of strangers, then I don't need my family. And that's really the goal, is to be able to make them obsolete. I want to make my family obsolete. And you can help me with this by liking Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. So please do that. Today, we have a great show. Simon Rich, very talented writer, incredible, funny guy, has written some of the funniest things you've seen on Saturday Night Live. He wrote Simpsons, he's written TV series, and he's written an incredible book called Glory Days, which I loved so much, I really had to sit down and talk with him about it. We'll also be talking about something that's true to me, which is I tend to write when I write, which isn't all the time because writing's hard, but when I write, I tend to write things about fantastical stories. Stories that are not of my life. They're not about, this guy who lives in LA and grew up in Encino, and they're not really autobiographical stories. They're stories about characters that I think are interesting, who are going through things in their lives that I am going through in my life, or that issues are coming up in those characters' complicated histories that rhyme with my history, but aren't exactly my history. I don't write about me. Anyway, we'll talk to Simon about it. He writes short stories about fantastical things, and they're fantastic, and they're interesting, and they're sometimes heartfelt. And I think that's legit. Should I be writing things that are more autobiographical, or is it okay to just write things that I love and that are interesting to me and that I think have meaning because they have meaning in my life, and that's enough? We'll talk about it with the great Simon Rich.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
So you watched my show?
I listened to it.
Did you listen to it because I said I want you on the show? And you said, hey, here's examples?
No, I listened to it for the first time, I think because Matt Groening was on it. Right. And I was like, I realized with shock I had never actually listened to an in-depth interview with him.
Right. Well, he doesn't do them.
Right. That's
this
what I learned.
This is the first time. Yeah.
And that's that. And then I was like, oh, Conan's been on and Judd's been on. So I've become a fan of the show.
I've enjoyed your work a lot, and I've read your other short stories book, and I really thought fantastic. And
thanks.
I don't know you from Adam. I don't know anything about you except that you're really talented, and so I've tried to learn. You'll tell me what I've got right and what I've got wrong.
Well, first, it means a lot to me because I am a fan of your writing on The Simpsons,
of course,
and Frasier, but also like not just an enormous fan, but your episodes of The Simpsons are like absolutely formative for me, and were among the very first works of art that I was ever obsessed with.
Fantastic.
So like the first time, like actually, like truly the first script or the first thing that sort of like approximates a script that I ever read in my life were transcripts of some of your episodes.
Oh wow!
Which were published in like some kind of Simpsons cash grab.
Sure.
One of the many
some sort of let's cheat Jake Hogan out of money publications.
One of those. Yeah, you certainly did not make a dime.
No, I know, I understand.
When I was reading and like copying out the jokes and the stage directions.
Interesting that this is true because your publicist gave me a big hard time to get you. I had to do a song and dance to pull you in.
They never talked to me. They should have.
I said, well, it's not, it's a wall.
But it was
There's a wall.
But
There's
it was
people that trying to save you the trouble of saying, no, Simon doesn't want to do it. I said, you might ask him. I did The Simpsons. I know he did The Simpsons. We have that. He worked Mad Magazine. My dad worked for Mad Magazine. I mean,
when did your so remind me?
Okay, so my dad's name is Arnie Kogan.
Right, I know.
And he's one of the usual gang of idiots. And he started working in the 1960s and continued working up until like 3 years ago.
Unbelievable.
So he wrote some of your favorite parodies of things.
And
probably.
so did you grow up knowing like William Gaines? And
I did know William Gaines. He gave me a nice bar mitzvah gift.
That's incredible.
Yeah, no, he did very nice. I knew some of those people. I mean, my favorite of them all is Sergio Aragonés. Is my favorite of them all, just on a personal basis and also just an artistic basis. I'm just a huge fan. But he's just a sweetheart genius.
Wow.
Who I love. But I mean, my dad. Many of them are dead.
Sure.
The people who came up with my dad at Mad Magazine, and I think the magazine may be dead. I'm not exactly sure.
I think it is dead. Yeah. But I wrote for it as recently as like maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like I think it went away and came back and under different leaderships over the years.
So you have like this nerd checklist of things that you wanted to do. This dream, nerd dreams that you've done.
My dream was to be on this podcast.
Wow.
So I was like, someday there's going to be this thing called podcast.
Fantastic.
And one of them is going to be this. And so I had to.
So you're like a precog nerd who knows things in the future. That's really great. But no, The Simpsons, like you did a guest episode of The Simpsons. Is that what happened? How did that work out? Like, I don't know. It's a Harvard connection. Go ahead.
I'll have you know that my way into the writer's room was through a graduate of Brown.
Okay.
So,
Who?
Ian Maxstone Graham.
Okay, yeah. All right.
So Ian was, who your listeners probably do know this, longtime Simpsons writer, a legend, was there for I think 17 seasons.
Sure, and very tall.
Extremely tall.
Very tall.
In fact, the character of the very tall man, I've heard, is based on him.
Could be true. I don't know.
That's what I've heard.
Long after I left, so
anyway,
I don't know.
Brilliant writer, incredibly sweet guy, and he was a writer-producer on a show I created called Man Seeking Woman.
Sure.
And I just, one of the reasons I hired him was obviously his incredible work for The Simpsons, my favorite television show. And I basically, when he was working for me, I just pressured him into introducing me to Selman.
Right, exactly.
So I could pitch him ideas. It was always my dream to write for The Simpsons growing up.
And how was that experience?
Thrilling.
Okay.
It was great. I mean, it was like fantasy camp. It was like, it's like one of those where you like get to put on a guitar and like, play on a stage and like sing backup for Springsteen or whatever.
They're hard. They're hard sometimes to write, especially, season 1000 where they've done everything.
Well, when I went in to pitch the episode ideas to Matt Groening, I was nervous that I would pitch something that they'd already done. And so I prefaced it by saying like, look, I don't want to offend anybody. And you should know I've only seen 600 episodes of The Simpsons.
Right.
Which is not like less than 80% or whatever.
Right. But but they've done everything. So it doesn't matter what you've done. You just got to find the new twist on the same old thing.
Yes. The thing that Groening said to me, and by the way, I did not know he was going to be there. When I was pitching.
He didn't know either, I'm sure. Not until he showed up that day.
That's it. Yeah. And so, but they're like, well, since he's here, you pitch to him because he's, and nominally in charge.
Okay.
And so I sat across from him and he said to me, the chair, I'm so happy we're talking because you could actually like tell me if this is real or just like a bizarre power move. He said, the chair that you're sitting in is the chair I was sitting in when I pitched The Simpsons.
Were you in that little chateau building that
has the movie banners on top?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
How is that?
Makes sense.
But why would he be pitching? What?
Because Jim's office is in there, and they went into Jim's office. That's kind of probably somewhere near Jim's office or the conference room near Jim's office.
So that was just small talk.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to like get under my skin and.
Maybe, probably not. I guess knowing Matt, I don't think you have any interest in getting under your skin. But it could have been
just
the
casual,
same chair. Yeah. But I mean, that story is still amazing. That story is like, that's what all of show business should be, which is you come in to do one thing and you say no. And then you say, but I'm going to give you this other thing.
Yes.
And it turns into $1 billion industry.
Yes.
That's fantastic. That's what I want to do.
Incredible.
I want to walk into a room with one bad idea and they say no. And then on my feet, think of something else and they go, okay. And then have that be the thing that gets my great grandchildren on yachts. Yeah. That's the most important thing. But that was good. So you pitched to him. Now the thing about The Simpsons is you have to gather up support from Matt Groening, but also from Jim Brooks, and also from Matt Selman, and also I don't know if you kind of from Al Jean a little bit. So.
I got to basically do a Selman episode.
Okay.
So he was like the showrunner that he was my boss. So I met Al a couple of times, but I was really working for Matt. So I would run every outline, every draft by him and a few of his like sort of.
That's good. Yeah. That's great.
But I did get to go to like the table read. I got to go to a couple of rewrite sessions. So it was very sweet of them to kind of like let me have the illusion of participation.
Well, you did participate. You wrote an episode. You wrote a first draft. I'm sure you wrote an outline. I'm sure you did all that stuff.
It was a thrill.
And what percentage of your work remained? Would you say
maybe half?
That's fantastic. That's a huge. That is a grand slam walk-off home run. If 50% of your stuff stayed, you can do no better.
That's great. I'm thrilled to hear.
Better. That's fantastic.
Definitely the best few jokes were not mine.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a group effort. Yeah. I mean that all things are a group effort. So that's fine. Well, I mean, maybe not your books. Your books may not be a group effort, but maybe they are. I don't know how many.
I wish they were.
You have editors and people. Does your wife's a writer?
Yes.
Does she read your stuff before it gets?
Yeah, I write these short story collections. And what I do is I basically write like twice as many stories as will ultimately be in the book, and then I kind of show them to the finished drafts to like editors. I show them to the New Yorker. I show them to my agent. I show them to my wife. I show them to a couple of like trusted friends, and I basically say,
which are the good ones?
Yeah, what are your favorites?
Right.
And they'll usually be like a consensus, and then I just kind of cut the other ones.
Did you
rather than try to fix them?
In Glory Days, did you have a theme going in, or did you just write a bunch of stories and then find the theme at the end of all the favorite short stories? These are what's the theme that runs through them to create a theme?
They all my collections have sort of like a loose theme, and it's pretty organic because I just kind of write stories that are about what I'm going through in my life, and it's when I had my first child, it's very predictable, but then I'm going to write a book about parenting, and this one is about turning 40, and what happens is I basically write once I've got 3 or 4 stories, I sort of start to realize what the book is going to be about, and then I consciously try to make it more thematically linked. But like the first one for this collection is a story called Mario, which was I saw on my phone the 40th anniversary of Super Mario, the video game, and I said, Mario's turning 40.
Right, just like you.
Just like me. I say, there's definitely a story there. And so that's a story written.
I felt sad for Mario. He had a lot of trouble. Back issues, money issues. The girl he was pursuing is not somebody he truly loved.
Yeah, the princess and him have an extremely toxic relationship. He accuses her of getting kidnapped by Koopas on purpose.
Yeah, I know.
Which is,
cheating.
Yeah, a hard thing to come back from in a relationship.
Right, and Luigi's
very
kind.
Luigi's doing better. So in the story you find out that Luigi finally got sober, and he, which is great because he was going to die, and but he's married to this guy Kiwami who's like very polite and rich, but just so boring, and he's constantly getting on Mario's case to redo his resume. Because Mario's really too old to be in the rescue business anymore. He's got horrific arthritis from smashing the bricks with his face for his entire adult life.
Very hard to live that lifestyle.
And it just at 40 you can't really pursue that long term.
And the whole plumbing thing, it's gone by the wayside. I mean, it's
all he's got though. Yeah, it's his only other. It's the only skill he could put on his CV. So Kiwami's like telling him how to write the resume and it's just it's a bad scene.
The stories were fantastic, and some of them were heartfelt. In other words, I read it to laugh, but I was moved by some of them. Like the participation trophy story, I thought was beautiful.
Thank you.
Like ultimately, and I didn't expect it to be beautiful, and it was beautiful. I feel like the Tooth Fairy. I was not moved by the Tooth Fairy so much, but I was like, I understood what the Tooth Fairy was going through, and I was like really happy when I read the Mario one. The Goliath one is hysterical. I mean, it's It's fantastic.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the Goliath one it's just the David and Goliath story from the perspective of Goliath.
Right.
David is the world's first underdog. He's sort of depicted in the story as a kind of like Justin Bieber like figure.
Right.
Just in the first press conference of all time, David just dominates. He says, he says really, all the praise should go to my mother. Being a single mother is no joke.
Right.
If you ask me, she's the real
hero.
She's the real ultimate death fighter. And everyone applauds. And Goliath, meanwhile, is just, he's broke, he's divorced, and he just needs to get endorsements to keep his daughter in private school.
And David in the story is a little douchey.
David really is.
He's a little douchey.
Well, he's very
smarmy.
He's very confident for someone who has never fought.
Right. And especially a giant who could rip his spine out.
Yeah, that's Goliath's move, is he rips people's spines out in a single motion.
Right.
It's impossible to defend against.
Right. And he takes, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but he takes an interesting turn at the end.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. Prime Video presents the Emmy Award-winning series Mr. and Mrs. Smith, starring Donald Glover and Maya Erskine, two lonely strangers, John and Jane, who have given up their lives and identities to be thrown together as partners, both in espionage and in marriage. Both are very dangerous. Rolling Stone calls the series genuinely terrific, and Entertainment Weekly says it's the very rare reboot that both evolves and honors the original. Also a Gotham Awards winner for Breakthrough Drama Series and hailed as one of the best series of 2024 by Entertainment Weekly, Vogue, and Vanity Fair. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is awards eligible and available for Guild members at consideramazon.com and is now streaming on Prime Video. Watch it!
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
One of the other ones that moved me oddly was the story like we're not so different, you and I.
Yeah.
Which is all about male friendship.
At
a certain age.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks.
Again, it's about a supervillain trying to make friends.
Yeah, the opening scene is the scene you've seen in every superhero movie for 50 years, which is Death Skull has Ultraman in chains and over a vat of toxic waste, and he says to him, we're not so different, you and I. And Ultraman's like, we're pretty
completely different.
Yeah, we're opposites,
Right.
Actually. Like,
Yeah.
I'm good, you're evil, like, nothing in common. And then it cuts to Death Skull at home with his wife, Jackie, and she's like, so are you guys how'd it go? Are you going to hang out? And you find out that was him fishing for essentially an adult play date.
Right.
And he's this middle-aged dude who has been megalomaniacally focused on his career and has not really prioritized relationships, and as a result, like, Jackie's going to girls' nights like 3 times a week. She's got friends from work, she's got friends from book club, and Death Skull is just alone drinking in his den,
hanging out and bugging the girls when they're over.
Bugging the girls a lot, trying to be part of their bachelorette
This
watch
is every
party.
man, even though he's a supervillain, this is every man's story.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that. And
well, it's all, it's all just, but it's all from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like every single thing I do, there's certain, like, obviously it's prose, so there are certain writing things I do that are ripping off prose writers that I love, but on like a tonal level and a story level and certainly on a premise level, it is just, I see it as straight up Simpsons plagiarism.
So let me challenge this, because one of the whole premise of the show, Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan, is I bring really smart people in to help me with my problems. And here's a problem I have as a writer, and which is I like doing stories that are about fantastical, interesting people or situations that I'm not. I write about mob bosses and about people, billionaires and what. I don't necessarily write about me, but I'm always putting pieces of my life and things I care about in it.
Yeah.
But I'm always told by people, sometimes executives, who want your authentic story. I want to hear your life, your story. My life is boring. I don't think I would make a good movie or TV show. Well, you're afraid. You're afraid to put your life down on paper. I said, I don't think I'm afraid. I think I am trying to keep things lively and interesting and make something that I'd want to watch. And I don't think I'd want to watch something about me. So I pose to you, are we afraid of revealing our lives? Are we afraid of putting it all out on the table because it's because it's just too intimate, or are we saving an audience boredom by not revealing our lives?
Well, have you ever tried? Because like that's the question is like because I personally, when I was growing up, the number one comedy writer in prose by far was David Sedaris, and it was not close.
Right.
So when I was, a teenager writing, hopefully funny things for magazines, the response was constantly, okay, like this is pretty funny, but like, can you write exactly though like David Sedaris?
Right.
I thought, well, no, I don't really do that. But of course, like at the age of 19, you say, well, I'll try.
Right.
And what I found at a very early age is when I was writing stories that were literally about things that had happened in my own life, not only were they boring, because my life was boring, especially compared to Sedaris's life, I couldn't write about them with any kind of emotional honesty or authenticity. So they were actually way less emotional.
Okay, so that kind of goes to the point where you're distancing yourself a little bit from the thing because it is your life.
It is weird,
and you don't have perspective, but B, maybe you want to keep some of that experience to yourself in this particular way.
Well, it's a story like Participation Trophy is a very confessional, emotional, autobiographical piece, but it's not written from my perspective, and I that's a story. It's told from the perspective of a like many millennials. I grew up winning a lot of participation trophies, which I at the time valued and only realized later on were worthless.
Right.
And so I wanted to write a story kind of about careerism and what it means to win and lose and all that stuff. And, sort of midlife re-examination of one's priors. So I was like, well, I'm going to write a story from the point of view of a participation trophy that I won at a field day in 1992. And so it's a letter addressed to me from this inert piece of plastic.
It's moving. It's a moving story.
And it's like, thank you. And the trophy is basically tells my life story from its point of view. And it's written as kind of like a love letter to the one who got away. This trophy really misses me. And,
of course.
So it's ridiculous and surreal. But it is way more emotionally honest, I think, than I've ever been. And that includes like journals that I kept as a teenager, in my like childhood bedroom.
Well, as I was starting my writing career, I was around other people who were starting their writing careers. And I noticed that almost everyone who wanted to be a screenwriter was writing a screenplay about a screenwriter trying to write their first screenplay. And it was like, this is horrible. Do not write your screenplay about a screenwriter writing his first screenplay. That is, it's a kiss of death. I already knew at 17.
The only exception to that, because I agree generally, but at every rule there are exceptions. Stephen King. Who writes about a lot of horror writers, and it's always, or mostly awesome. But yes, I agree.
Well, Stephen King is the exception to all rules.
It's true.
And he can write anything, anytime, anywhere, and it'd be great. So, but it's interesting. Like, to me, I would much rather write about that struggle. To write that first screenplay and change screenplay to bank robbery, or change, to put the same emotion into something else, and then explore it from a different point of view. It's easier for me, and maybe it's a deficiency in my psychological makeup.
In the history of music, it's very cyclical. Is Rodgers and Hart, Rodgers and Hammerstein moving music? Or is it kind of like, is it less authentic than, Bob Dylan? Because Bob Dylan, he's not only did he write it, but he is singing it and playing it to you. It cycles back and forth, and then it depends on who you're asking and what the marketing department is telling you.
The Gershwins wrote some pretty great songs.
I would describe,
and Bob Dylan wrote some pretty great songs, and Elvis Costello wrote some pretty great songs, and Billie Eilish is writing some nice songs. So it's like, there's lots of good art out there, and not all of it is even Bob Dylan. He's writing about his life, but it's so packed through metaphor and poetry, and try to decipher it. You can't. It means a million things to a million people.
There is that thing of like the confessional stand-up comedian, or the confessional singer-songwriter. who's writing about their actual relationships, which is very powerful to some people. And then there's also, I would argue that the Pixar movies are very moving and emotionally authentic, and the people writing them are not literally fish.
Right. And they may not literally have a lot of emotions either, because they're working for Pixar. But what was your experience at Pixar like?
It was great. Yeah. It was maybe a little bit like writing for The Simpsons, in that it's, or at least like being a staff writer on an animated sitcom.
Right.
Although I think the hours were much better.
But they rip it all up, right? I mean, they take a story, they perfect it, they hone it, they perfect it, and then they rip it apart and do something else.
Yeah, that's what felt similar. And Pete Docter, basically the director of the movie is essentially, that you're working for, is essentially the showrunner.
Right.
So like Pete Docter, and it was my boss, and it was very much like being a staff writer on a sitcom with Pete as the showrunner.
Right.
And the movie I worked on mostly there was Inside Out, and it was very much like an iterative process. You get it into animatics, you test it. Right. Certain parts are working, certain parts are not, and the reason the movies are so expensive is because sometimes they'll have a version of the movie that is like pretty good, and most studios will be like, all right, release it, and Pixar will be like,
not quite.
Let's kick we'll release it 2 years later and spend another $80 million to get it from a B to an A.
Yeah, those they may not be doing that so much anymore. I don't know. Money seems to be, the bottom line seems to be mattering a lot more.
Yeah.
Do you see Inside Out 2, how they ruined your work?
That's great.
Inside Out 2, oh my God.
It's great. I think Pete has done a wonderful job, and I think the movies are fantastic.
Yeah, you have to say that. That's fine.
That's true. But
but
I do mean it.
As you get older, you look 12, but you're 40?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about that. You look young.
Yeah, it runs in my family. Right. It's I don't know if there's like a genetic term for it, but my grandfather was arrested on a train in 1945. He had just finished his like military service. He was a non-combatant, but had a high rank. Mm-hmm. He had he was impersonating
an officer?
Yes.
Okay.
He had done a really good job at supervising warehouses in India, and he was wearing his medals.
Right.
And they arrested him for impersonation.
So you've had this history of this with genetically.
Yeah.
As you get older, do you feel you're getting more comfortable, like the participation trophy, getting deeper into your own psyche and your own truth and your own thing? Do you think you'll ever get close to writing something that's much closer to autobiographical,
Well, it's interesting. I've always seen my short stories as extremely autobiographical. Mm-hmm. And
I feel that way about the weird stuff I write too, but people tell me it's not. Tell me
it's not.
You're
literally,
hiding. You're hiding behind, a concept or a big, big premise.
Yeah, like I wrote a story called "Is It Just Me," which is about a guy who in his 20s, and he finds out that his ex-girlfriend is dating somebody new, and he's not over her at all, but she obviously is over him because she's dating this guy who happens to be really rich, and he's older, and he's especially upset when he finds out that it's Adolf Hitler, who in the story you are in is 137 years old. Mm-hmm. He's been in hiding under his assumed name in Buenos Aires since the 40s, and it's really annoying because
that became part of your TV show.
The first episode is based on that story. Yeah. And his friends are like, you just don't like him because he's dating Maggie. like he's like cool. He's got great stories.
He's Hitler.
And also like, it's like his party, and he bought all his food. He's catered, and it's like maybe they chill out a little and like go make a scene. And he just gets wasted, and it ends up with him having to apologize to Hitler. And that's a story I wrote when I after being dumped.
Right.
And that was that was born of an extremely emotional experience for me. And
it's real. It's visceral. It's real. But I think that at least of the last 10 years or so, writers are being judged by how their life experience is literally the life experience of the thing they're writing, especially when you're pitching a movie or a TV show. Like if you say like, well, why are you the one to write this story of the, gangsters? What's your experience? Well, I don't have any, but I've seen a lot of movies and read some books. That's not good enough. If you say, this is my story, that's part of the sale now.
But all you have to do though is then say, we'll just say the actor wrote it.
Yeah. No, I understand.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
You don't do that?
No.
Oh, you just say it. You say, just we'll say the actor improvised it.
Right.
Or
Okay.
The actor showed up with script. I mean, if you just...
Sometimes I just lie straight out and say, yes, that's my story. Like, I'll lie. I'll say that I have this experience. Yes, Chinese immigrants.
You want it to
Chinese immigrants, it's like second nature to me.
I want it to be whoever the most famous person is involved.
Yeah.
They wrote it. It's their story.
Theirs. Yeah. All right.
And the best looking, most famous person should always be just marketed as the writer.
Right. I can't keep saying that Nicole Kidman wrote everything I wrote. Maybe
you should.
I don't know.
You should think
I'll
about
try.
it.
I'll try.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
As we're recording this, you have a play of short stories that are then becoming a play at the Hudson Theater.
Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
It's a rotating cast, really talented people,
Right.
and including my friend John Mulaney,
Sure.
Fred Armisen,
Richard Kind.
Richard Kind, of course.
Who will be, that's something I can tell you already is Richard Kind will be wonderful. He will be great.
It's what's great about it is it's like some of these actors are extremely talented, and also I hear them in my head sometimes anyway when I'm writing fiction, and so to have them perform it on a stage is just really cool.
That's fantastic.
Richard Kind I got to because of Inside Out. He's Bing Bong, so and he was also in a show. You
killed him in that.
I know.
Son of a bitch.
I know. We did kill him.
Yeah.
But then I cast him as God on a show on Man Seeking Woman, and he was so funny. So I've been a fan of his for years, and I can't wait to see him do this.
He is great. If you ever go back to in the archives of this show, he does a great Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. That is a must see.
Oh my gosh!
Because he talks about how important confidence is.
Yes.
And he exudes it. So it's very very worth watching.
Yeah.
But
fantastic.
Was that ever a dream? A Broadway play?
So I did a BBC radio show for a few years. It was 3 seasons on BBC 4, and it was just actors over in London performing my stories in front of a live audience, and it was a really fun experience. It was actors like Peter Serafinovich and like Jamie Demetriou from Fleabag and other shows, and it was the first time I'd really heard actors just like perform the stories in front of an audience, and what's also great is you can use music and Foley and all that stuff, and I just always thought it would be cool to try it in the United States.
We're ready. I think the United States is ready. We can handle it.
I think so. And then, but I had no idea how to do it like visually. And so that was sort of what was holding me back, because I was like, well, what would it actually look like though? And then Alex Timbers, this brilliant theater director who does like very visually spectacular stuff, like Moulin Rouge and Beetlejuice. He was like, he approached me and said, would you want to do a show? And I was like, yes, if you can figure out how anything looks, and what they're doing up there.
And he could. Okay, great.
And he has. So, so that's, I've always been very reliant on directors for all of my adaptations. So like my TV shows, Miracle Workers, the pilot was directed by Jorma Taccone from Lonely Island, and then John Kreisel directed the pilot for Man Seeking Woman. They're both like very much responsible for how those shows look. And I think honestly, like with my adaptations, I feel like if we're left to me, they would look almost like radio plays.
Are you getting better at the visualization the more you do? No.
Worse.
Wow.
Because I think it's one of those things you just need to like keep up with how things look. You need to really love it. Like at Pixar, all those CalArts, they're drawing constantly. They're watching things constantly. If you just and they're parodying whatever is like in the visual zeitgeist. If you walk down a hall at Pixar, you'll see pasted on the wall like caricatures of every popular movie that's out there right now, but they're also being influenced by it, and they're just like so on the cutting edge of how things look. And you don't do that if it's homework. You do it because you love it.
So you've helped me feel better about my lack of courage to write my own personal autobiography. Although the story of a young man in Encino, coming of age, while his father wrote for Mad Magazine and the Carol Burnett Show, and then braved the waters of UCLA only to find his way into Hollywood. It feels like exciting.
It feels like the follow-up to Baby Reindeer that
exactly
Netflix needs.
A real challenge. I had some real challenges. They wouldn't let me stay at a dorm at UCLA. How about that? I had to live at home.
I think you get at least two episodes out of that.
I appreciate all this. We're going to move on to our next segment.
It's question time.
This is from Will, who says, what's the SNL sketch he stands by that didn't make it on the air or didn't make it out of the read-through?
Great question. Okay. What is the one? Can I count ones that got cut and then when Mulaney came back and hosted, he was famous enough to insist that we put it on the show?
Right. Is Chimp Judge one of those?
No, that's a new one. Yeah, that is an original sketch we wrote, Monkey Judge. Yeah. But whenever he goes back to host, we basically look through our list of sketches we are most aggrieved
about. And what was the aggrieved one that you saved from the pile?
Switcheroo. So Switcheroo is a sitcom, family sitcom from the 80s, which has this sort of classic premise of a dad switching bodies with his son, which we've seen, various iterations of that Freaky Friday premise. So it's one of those. And then the twist on is that this show, in order to be as truthful as possible about what the switcheroo would mean, the son has to have sex with the mom.
Right. Because she doesn't know the switcheroo has happened. Right. So to keep the secret alive, he has to act like a husband.
Yeah, and the catchy theme song, which we're very proud of, goes, son goes to work, dad goes to school, and the son has sex with the mom.
Right.
So we could not get that over the goal line until Mulaney had like 3 number one specials on Netflix. So then it was like, oh, okay, we can dust that switcheroo. Yes. So yeah, we had a few like that. Also, toilet death ejector.
Okay.
Was another one that and I'd say we wrote these with Marika Sawyer.
Sure.
The 3 of us wrote these in our early 20s, and toilet death ejector we're very proud of. And it's basically there's nothing more embarrassing as an old person to be discovered dead on the toilet.
Right.
So it's every elderly person's worst nightmare. So what this product does is, if you're on the toilet and you feel yourself dying, you press a button and it flings your body as you're dying away from the toilet to your bed.
Right.
And then once sort of the toilet flushes behind you, like a puff of like lavender mist is sprayed. And then also, we were very proud of this, a smart book drops from a compartment on the ceiling and lands on your chest. Reading. So it looks like you are doing something smart.
Right.
And you can choose between the Bible, how to win friends and
influence people,
or latest Gladwell.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah. And based on your demographic, you can pick which one. And again,
I've seen
Mulaney had to get pretty famous for us to get that onto TV.
I've seen every Saturday Night Live. I've seen every Saturday Night Live.
Wait, really?
I've seen every Saturday Night Live.
You've seen every Saturday Night Live?
I've seen every Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a problem. I've seen every Saturday.
That's incredible.
50 years worth of Saturday Night Live, from the first one to
That's amazing.
I don't even the worst years. I've seen them all.
That's great.
I don't remember everything, but I remember a lot of them. But I was such a huge fan. It's such an important part of my life, and it's sort of like I've never tried to work there because I think it would ruin it. But it was always the zeitgeist of it. Yeah. Was always important to me and still is.
Have you seen every Simpsons?
I have not seen every Simpsons.
Okay. Yeah.
No. And because one of the things about, if you know how the sausage is made, you don't necessarily like everything. I've seen a lot of Simpsons, and all the Simpsons I've seen since I've left are great.
Yeah, I think that SNL is better than it was when I was there.
Yeah.
And I think the writing is better.
SNL is the same always, which is 3 good sketches, you've got one of the best shows.
Yeah.
It's like
great.
3 great sketches make the show.
Totally.
And it's fantastic. So
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Yeah.
I'm so when you mention all the sketches, and I remember every one of them.
Oh, that's great.
And
I love that.
And I love them. And they're great. So congratulations. Mr. Catman writes, what gives him the right to be so fucking talented?
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's really
what gives you
nice.
the right?
That's very sweet.
You're not answering the question.
Tell
What
that
gives you the
person
right?
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. But what gives you the right to be so talented?
What gives me the right?
Yeah.
How would you answer that question? I'm curious.
I would say I don't have the right to be talented. I think you're mistaking my talent for the talent of the many people I've worked with.
It's so good. Can we run it back and I'll say that?
No, we're
Please?
stuck with that. We're stuck with your sociological sort of nightmarish selfishness. It's all out there now. Now everybody knows. Look at you're all about you. You're all about
Damn
you.
it.
Bryson writes, will your new show be reviewed by your dad?
Oh, my play.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Okay.
I mean, that would be a much
What if
easier.
he panned it? What if he panned it?
It would be excellent
Yeah.
karmic retribution
Right.
if my play got panned by the New York Times. I mean,
Right.
my father, when he was a theater critic,
Right.
his nickname was the Butcher of Broadway.
Sure.
Because he panned so many shows
And close them.
and closed them often that night.
Yeah.
So the power of the New York Times
Yeah.
was such in the 1980s that he would write a devastating review and the play would just close.
Yeah.
So like if anyone deserves to have their show panned,
Right.
it's his son.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's any
Justice.
if there's any God or
Yeah.
if there's any
We'll see.
yeah.
We'll see. Carlos writes, you grew up in New York and now live in Los Angeles. I've never heard anyone make humorous comparisons between the two cities. I'm wondering if Simon has any thoughts.
Can't think of a single bit about that.
Was it a weird adjustment coming to LA, or is it just fine?
People are way less into reading.
Yeah.
It's something I've noticed in LA versus New York. I would say that the amount of credit that you get in LA for
Reading a book?
for having read a book
Right.
is exactly equivalent to the amount of credit you would get in New York for having written that same book. So if you're like, I read a Malcolm Gladwell
Right.
book at the airport, it would be like saying at a dinner party in Park Slope, like, I am Malcolm Gladwell. It'd be equally impressive.
Right. So no,
It's just a
doesn't seem
different,
the same.
but that doesn't
Okay.
mean, but I think in terms of creativity and talent, to me, the most impressive people I've met they all live in LA.
Right. They're just illiterate, but they're fantastic.
They are illiterate, yeah,
it's
but
fantastic.
they're extremely funny and witty and
It's my people.
Yeah.
We don't read. We do. And now this is time for listener mail.
Now it's time for listener mail.
This is a letter written into me, not knowing you'd be the guest.
Yeah.
So it's Dear Jay and guest, I'm looking to find an achievable goal. What's a quality you've worked on that has truly gotten better over time, and what do you want to work on now? How much progress counts as success?
So I, because I am from New York, late to driving.
Right.
So when I grew up, my parents did not ever own a car.
You didn't need it.
Yeah, I didn't need
Yeah,
it. You just take the subway, or you take a cab if you were in a hurry, and that was the situation. And then in my 30s, I had to learn how to drive, and I am a very timid driver. I don't have a great sense of how to communicate with other drivers on the road. I failed.
Which is odd because you're such an aggressive person.
Yeah.
So weird how you're not an aggressive driver.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it. And I failed the test twice before passing it. I thought an achievable goal would just be to get to a level of just competence and safety for my sake and my family's sake. And then I realized I didn't have to do that. What I could do was, and this is an amazing trick.
Okay.
And I probably shouldn't be revealing this, but it's just too good to.
All right.
I put a student driver bumper sticker on the back of my car.
Nice.
So people know I'm bad.
So people forgive you for your bad driving.
And they avoid me.
Yeah.
They know it's an honest, simple, legible way to communicate. Stay out of my way.
Right.
I suck at driving.
Okay. So, but do you really suck?
Yeah.
You're really bad.
Yeah. And this sticker has made all the difference. So I would say to this listener, it's not about getting
improve.
bad. No, figure out a
hack.
A hack so that it becomes other people's problem.
Okay, excellent. So you're wasting your time trying to improve your life and get better at something. So no amount of success is success. Success is tricking other people.
Just lie.
Lying. Okay, well, there you have it. There you have it. Now it's time for the moment of joy.
A moment of joy.
So I thought about what I was going to pick because I know this. I'm a listener, I'm a fan of the show.
Yeah.
Thought like, well, maybe I'll say something like really like beautiful or or something about like my
Your
children.
Daughters, you can't talk. Daughters are off the table.
Right, because I was like, oh, that makes
Too
me
easy.
seem more human and likable. And I was like, I'm just going to be honest and say like what actually brings me the most pleasure in life.
Yeah.
And it is a show called Killer Karaoke starring Steve-O.
Okay.
Which is a remake of a Japanese game show. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many episodes they aired before canceling it in the States. I think it was on like maybe like Fuse. It was on one of those cable channels at the height of the bubble that
got canceled on Fuse, then was put on Trinket.
Yeah, exactly.
And now it's
one of those.
It's rerunning on Button.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay,
And
yeah.
I think the reason it was canceled, it was a combination of like low ratings.
And you don't want to see Steve-O singing.
I think the biggest reason it got canceled is for safety issues.
Yes.
Because the premise of the show is that people need to sing karaoke to Steve-O. So he's actually just the audience.
Right.
They need to sing to him while being physically tortured.
Okay.
And the forms of torture vary segment to segment.
Right.
Sometimes they're walking through cacti, but the best torture, from my opinion, is that they're being electrically shocked by a series of sensors that are strapped onto their body.
Right.
And whenever I'm in a bad mood or feeling disappointed or anxious, I just pull up a specific clip, which everyone should watch, which is Rambling Man, which is a man with a beautiful baritone voice serenading Steve-O
as he is
being electrically shocked within an inch of his life.
All right.
And that is my moment of joy.
Are you a fan of the Jackass universe?
Love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah,
Okay.
but as much as I love that show and everything about Jackass, to me, that sort of branch of comedy reached its apotheosis for me with Killer Karaoke starring Steve-O.
I'll have to see it. Rambling Man.
Yeah.
All right. You've heard it here first, people. That is the moment of joy. Well, I want to thank you for being here, man.
Thanks
It was great to meet you.
Thanks for having me. And honestly, like, not to embarrass you, but like your episodes for The Simpsons were so formative for me as a kid.
Which specific episodes were so good? I mean, you can name them all, but no. Thank you very
Lisa
much.
the Greek, Bart the Daredevil,
Well,
Treehouse of Horror.
I'm glad you like them. I wrote them with, of course, Wally Wolodarski and all those other great writers.
Yes.
You know, they're fantastic. So, I mean.
But I know that you wrote the Homer jumping over the gorge and then falling because you mentioned because you took credit for it on the Graining interview. So I know that you wrote my favorite slapstick moment in the history of The Simpsons.
One of the greatest things I've ever, my happiest writing moment and how it was executed. Well, I'm glad you like it. I am proud of it. Bart the Daredevil, I hate my work, watching my work. I don't know.
Really?
I really do. But Bart the Daredevil is one thing I really love.
Just thrilling.
And I still can watch it. So there you
I
go.
watched it recently, yeah.
All right, well, thank you. And thanks for being here. And I'm thrilled to be now one of your best friends. So that's fantastic. I'm very honored to be there. And I'm sure you'll send me your next book before it goes out for my opinion. It's very important. And I'll be honest. I will be honest.
Don't be too honest.
I'll be completely honest. No. Full detailed notes. And thank you for being here. Don't be alone. Meet somebody great, like Simon. Go talk to somebody, have a good life, connect with somebody, do something. Don't just sit there on your music machine or what are you doing? Are you exercising right now? Talk to somebody next to you. Say hi. Anyway, we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Don't be alone.